Welcome to Refined Resilience. I'm your host, Carrie Hill, and on this podcast, we highlight the small moments that shape our journey toward greatness and remind us that resilience isn't linear. Each episode features stories of perseverance and the little victories that often go unnoticed, illustrating that resilience is about finding strength in everyday life. Well, hello, everybody. I am so excited to have my friend here with me, Trina Celeste Limpert, and she is the CEO of Rise Next, an AI solutions and training company. Hello, beautiful.
Hello.
She's also the co-founder of the award-winning nonprofit techmoms.org. She's an Amazon #1 bestseller with her book, Orchestrating Life-Work Harmony, and she's recognized as one of Utah business's most influential women, a 30 Women to Watch honoree, and a recipient of the Women Tech Council Impact Award. Trina's leadership has also earned techmoms.org the distinction of Utah's Nonprofit of the Year. And with a 30-year career in technology, Trina empowers both businesses and individuals to build technical skills and adapt to the ever-changing tech landscape. A sought-after keynote speaker, she inspires audiences to prioritize what matters most. As the best-selling author of Orchestrating Life-Work Harmony, Trina shares practical strategies to help people navigate success while keeping life in balance. And I can honestly say you do all of these things in harmony.
Yes.
Yes, you are a powerhouse.
It's not perfect or beautiful like everybody thinks harmony is. It's just something you're always seeking after. And you learn to recognize when you're not in harmony, which allows you to go, oh, pause. I call it the power of the pause. And then, okay, now we're going to move back in. That's why it's the orchestrating, right? It's like, okay, all right, now I can move forward. And you're constantly going through this orchestration rather than like, oh my gosh, I got to balance everything, right?
I'm not a fan of the word balance.
I am not either.
If I use that word, I never feel like I ever have a shot at being
That's exactly how I start out my book, is balance is bullshit.
Yeah.
It just does not happen, right?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, Trina, like, first of all, I want you to know you have, since I have known you, which is a little less than a year actually. And really we met and then I got to know you a little bit just a few months ago, but you have had a profound impact on me. You have inspired me personally to do good things in the world for other single moms. And I think like wonderful. Frequencies align with each other. And I love your energy. You're so strong. You're so powerful. And you're wise. You're very, very wise.
Working on it.
Yeah, I appreciate and I appreciate you. I've learned you are one person that I would say, if Trina validates this, I feel really good about this direction. Wonderful. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate the comment.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, you got it. I want to hear about the origin story of your book. Let's just start there because it's a powerful book.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's, balance is not a thing. So what was the moment that took you into this space of harmony?
It's a journey. It was, with all the work that I've done throughout the years and really started getting into public speaking and keynoting, everybody kept saying, well, where's your book? And I'm like, I don't want to write a book. I just don't. It's a ton of work. I knew it was going to be. And I kept putting it off. I mean, for years, I just was like, no, I just don't want to write a book. I don't see the point in it. And what's kind of funny is I had somebody on Instagram. A lot of people might know him, Randy Garn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know him, but he messaged me on Instagram. He's like, hey, can you come in my office? And I'm like, okay, that's kind of creepy. I don't know if I want to do that. But my husband knew him. He's like, no, he's great. You should go.
Yeah.
And so I went to his office and we sat down and just started to get to know each other. And he just kind of paused and he said, I just feel prompted to tell you, you need to write your book. Like it was already there. Like it was a thing, right? And I'm like, I don't want to write a book. And then I'm like, what book? I don't have an idea for a book. He planted this seed that I couldn't let go. And it took me 2 years. It wasn't quick because I am doing a lot of other things, right? So I had to fit it in and orchestrate with the rest of my life. And then I started to really contemplate, well, what would I write about? How would I go about this? How do you become an author, right? There's a lot you got to figure out. I went through the process of like, do I go with a publisher? Do I self-publish? I mean, if anybody is thinking about doing it, feel free to reach out because I have lots of
it's a process.
I have lots of learning. I overpaid for a lot of things I shouldn't. It was a long journey. I ended up creating my own publishing company because I was like, this publishing process is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they're taking advantage of a lot of people that are, have a story to tell and want to say something. But I ended up just self-publishing, and it was really successful, and it's been really fun to get out. But I had to really be specific as I wrote the book on who am I writing to, and start capturing what are the things I'd want to share with. Where I ended up is with my alumni, with my tech moms, and what their journeys and how challenging that is, right, for them to not only build skills and build a career, but you can't do that and just ignore that we don't have lives. Right. And my experience in 30 years in the tech industry was like, you hide that you're a mom, you hide that you have a life, and you just have to kind of like compartmentalize and not let anybody know that you've got all these other demands on your plate and act like they're not there. And I'm like, that's not healthy.
Right.
First of all. And so as I started to put the idea together, I really did like the idea of like, let go of that idea of balance. It does not work. It does. You cannot carry it all because it kind of assumes you're doing it all and you can't. Right. You've got to let some stuff go. And then really, what are the areas you need to focus on in your life to be able to find I'm going to call moments of harmony. You're finding more moments of harmony than disharmony, right? It's not perfect all the time. But you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get where I'm going. I know what the vision and purpose is of my life. I know how to work on my relationships, my financial needs, very important, right? Your career, or if you're just doing community involvement, some way of being actively working one way or another, and then finding space for yourself. But I have a model that I built out that really starts in the whole fundamental of looking at your life like a garden. And how do you center yourself in that garden and putting yourself first? Because one of the biggest things I always found was that a lot of the students we're working with were putting everybody else's needs above their own. And they were no longer important, and they were losing themselves in the sacrifice. Yeah. And so it was like, how do you center yourself in your garden? And here's the things you need to be working on, cultivating and growing, and then keeping out what I call the goats. That's why there's a goat on the cover. It's like the goats of distraction, the goats that will consume they will just take whatever you give them. And so you have to stop letting the goats in and put up the boundaries and the guardrails or the fences. But all of this starts, and where I share some very personal stories in the book of handling a lot of challenging life experiences with my own family and my son that was dealing with suicidal ideation, and really how we all need to put our own mental health. I call it the fertile soil of mental health before anything else will grow. And so all of these ideas started coming together to go back and answer. It's kind of a long answer to your question, but where this really sparked was I was at the gym and I was like, okay, what am I going to write my book on, right? And it was like this, I'm on the bike and I'm cycling and I'm reading a book, and all of a sudden it was just like, whew, it just came, and I had to turn to the back of the book and I just flipped and wrote down this whole model, just was like, there it is. And then kind of built from there. Yeah.
So Trina, first of all, I really appreciate that you focused on students. I think that's an under-discussed demographic of mental health needs. College-age students, especially college-age students, because of the demands that they have with everybody.
In my mind, it was my tech mom students.
Right.
But there's when you're going through this learning experience, whether you're in college or an adult non-traditional learner, wherever you're coming from, you should be improving your skill sets, but how do you make room for that, right? How do you carve out that space for yourself to be able to grow? Well,
so my daughter just graduated from UVU, which I know are, big proponents of tech moms. And she, just watching, my reference for stating that was watching her try to navigate the endless hours of demand, and my class is the most important, and this is the most important, and try to figure out, how do I work full time, and how do I attend to myself? So when you take that from that model into now moms that are literally never in balance, right? We're never. And if you don't understand the definition of harmony, you don't really know how to reposition yourself in the garden. So I want to know what your definition of harmony is.
and everybody's version. Here's what I want to put out there. First of all, is that everybody's version of harmony is going to be different. And we should never judge what somebody else is doing compared to yourself. And I see a lot of comparison, and we need to stop.
Agreed.
Stop with the comparison, because your version of harmony is not going to be like ours are going to be different.
Right.
But that's why I came up with a model of looking at the 5 things that can really help us grow. I call it the lawns model. So I don't know if you remember back to science class, it was like, okay, how does a plant grow, right? And what do you need to be able to be able to grow and be in harmony, right? And so I use this analogy in the book of you need light, air, water, nutrition, and space. Those are the 5 things. So if you kind of the way I tie that in is the light in our life are our relationships. Those are who brings us happiness. Like when you look back, even I was thinking about this week with like the LA fires. What did people take with them? It was their pictures. And the people, right? That's what's most important, our relationships, getting those in alignment. So if you have toxic relationships, or you need to set boundaries there, or bringing in I call it bring in the people that can help you bloom and keep out the goats that consume. Right. And so you've got to identify who's helping you grow and bloom and who's not, and make sure you've got that light. Air is going to be your financial wellness. Like we need to put in more time and priority in building wealth, right? Not just money, but understanding the fundamentals of wealth building is important. We're actually going to be launching some financial courses this year.
Amazing. That's very cool.
But then your career and being involved, that's another source of fulfillment in your life. And then finding space for yourself. That's the S in it all. But like I said, it's that nutrition piece. It's your own mental health and wellness, and continually working on that. You know, getting your head to not be ruminating or having negative thoughts. And I call them the 4 destroyers. It's fear, doubt, and really removing some of those negative things that are in your mind that can derail you from success and finding harmony. I mean, I tried to simplify as much as possible, right? But there's a lot to be considering.
For sure, it's complicated, and it's relative to what you are, where you are in your life.
Moment. And this is a model that you don't just do one time and you're done. It's an ongoing. Sometimes I'll sit down. I have the model where you can just sit down and like, okay, map it out. Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And it gives you a way of like processing. Like, okay, it's because of this relationship, or I'm financially struggling, or I just don't have enough space for myself. I need a break, right?
Trina, I really, it's very, very cool that you, and I'm making an assumption here that this book came out of your own need to have this journey and to explore these spaces in your life, you know. And I think we learn the best when we are in learning mode. We teach the best when we're in learning mode. I guess is what I was trying to say.
For me, I said, I was writing to my students, but I wrote it for me, and I got done, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wrote this so that I could solve my own problems.
Right. Yes.
And I do share a lot of my personal, I mean, a lot of the book is my own struggle and history. I'm very vulnerable in that book. It was hard to really put myself out there in a lot of really challenging ways, talking about, you know, my ex-husband and going through divorce and going through cancer and my son's mental health issues. I hit some really heavy, hard topics. I think it was important for me, and especially to the people that are reading it, to go, oh, wait, we're all very real. We all go through some pretty hard things, you know. I have 2 chapters on sexism. Just the really hard things I dealt with my whole life, Raina, and how it tied into my work and recognizing it. But nobody explained to me what was going on. You just kind of like get hit with it, and you're like, what is this? Right. And then, and I really want to help people to be able to recognize it. And I say, for most of my career and my life, I just felt like I had to get a thicker skin. Like I just need to put up with it more, right? I need to get better with just dealing with the fact that, you know, whether it's assault or, you know, being harassed or whatever it is, comments. I still get them. I still get just freaking like I was at an event, I was at a gala, and I got introduced to somebody, and they said, "You're too bossy."
Wow.
And I was like, I'm not like, what are you talking about? I'm not too bossy. Like, you know, you get, and I'm 51 years old, and I still get it. Right. And so it's just,
and it feels like a surprise every time you get it too. Yeah. It's just like, really again. Like,
no. And then you leave and you're like, oh, why didn't I say it? But I think being prepared more, or recognizing what those issues are, or why they're happening, gives you the opportunity to be able to respond better.
For sure.
So what I've learned is it's not about having a thicker skin. It's about having a stronger voice.
Yes. Yeah.
It's about using your voice and being able to be strong enough to speak up and say, hey, that probably wasn't okay. You know?
Do you know, it's funny being in PR for such a long time, Trina. I'm very attuned to how people describe or talk about other people, you know. And I remember I was at this conference, and it was actually it was a workshop, not a conference, but I was there, and the presenter was presenting his team of real estate agents, and they were all women. And he said, you know, me and the girls. And I thought, that's so cringy, like, right? And so I took the moment afterward to say, hey, just through a PR lens, I want to let you know what this sounds and feels like to professional women that are in the audience, and not to make you feel badly about it, but because you probably haven't stopped to think and no one's pointed it out to you. Yeah. Let me share with you from the listener standpoint, this is what it sounded like. Yeah. And so just, you know, maybe think about that next time you're presenting, that these women have worked very hard to be on your team, and that they are professional women and deserve that title of being whatever, director, CEO, whatever that looks like, you know? And so I love that your focus is on, I want to challenge you through education versus having a chip on my shoulder. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I've learned, like, even the individual that said that, I've met them a few times since, and they're great. They just don't realize their own bias or understand how to deal with it when it's like, they like verbally vomit, and then they're like, oh, what do I do? And then they shut down, and so you're like, it's okay. Like, look, that wasn't appropriate, but I'm not going to freak out. Like, I do have a name. And thank you.
And a book, by the way.
I am a strong, bossy woman. Thank you.
Yeah. But you're not, though, Trina. That's the that's the thing is, I think, you know, you've taken this work that you were inspired to create, that Randy prompted you to move forward with, right? And you have, through that process, been able to organize some of the really big moments that have made you this powerful person in your life into a way that people can consume it and understand how to navigate cancer in this way with harmony and suicidal ideation of your child, while you're building a brand, while you are the expert voice in this area over here. And how do I live in all of those realms at the same time? And I think you've been able to take that and give that tool to now almost over 700. How many women are through Tech Moms right now?
Over 600 now. Yeah, we'll actually have another 100 in classes starting this month.
That's amazing. Yeah. So tell, for anybody that's listening, just in case they don't know what Tech Moms is, would you give a brief overview of the organization? Yeah,
it's the best thing in my life, like, that I've created ever, first of all. So Tech Moms is a workforce transition. We do education, but we wrap around a lot of services, because careers into tech for women and the barriers that we face are very different than a standard student that's just like, okay, I'm going to start my college education at the age of 19, and I have this great network of my bros, that are going to come in and help me develop my career. We have a very different path, and we have a lot of additional barriers that most people don't have.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, childcare, financial need, financial access. There's a lot of relationships where finances are controlled, and so they don't have access to the means to be able to even get into a college education. The network is a huge one, right? We just don't, if you've left to be able to raise your family, you've been very insular in your family. You don't have that, you know, BYU bros network to pull on that's going to help you build your career. And so it's very intimidating. Yeah. Right. You've gone through that to like get back into your career. It's tough, right? For anyone, but you can imagine the confidence and the challenges for them to come in and go, I'm going to be going in with people that are 20 years younger than me. I haven't been up on the latest of what I need to do for LinkedIn or my resume or how to apply. And so it's upskilling in the most viable careers. We say tech jobs are mom jobs.
Yeah.
Right? They're remote working, they're flexible, they're higher pay. And every job is a tech job. So why not go into tech? And you don't need to go back for 4 years. You can do very quickly within 3 to 6 months, get certifications that get you employable.
Yeah.
And so that's why we focus on the tech space, right? Is that's where the biggest opportunity, especially in this landscape that's shifting so quickly in the AI space, so many more women are going to have to come back into the workplace, right?
Yeah.
Like cost of housing has gone up, all these things. Go into the jobs that are going to pay you well, that are going to enable you, that are going to give you the most opportunity. And so we do a bridging program that helps kind of demystify the whole tech industry. We bring in women that are in roles in, software development, UI, UX design, technical sales, digital marketing, product management, just kind of explain what these roles are, what education you need, how much money you're going to make. We talk money. We need to be talking more about money.
Yeah. Pause there for a minute, Trina, because this is for both of us who have been single moms. And I think money is it's a topic that you can be afraid to talk about, because if you don't understand it, and if somebody else has been doing it for X amount of years in your relationship, and now the blueprint has changed, and now you're carrying all of those hats, it is like the tundra. Where do I
navigate?
So I really appreciate that you put a hyper focus on finances, and that you're going to have some programs coming out focused on that. Tell me about you you're very intelligent. You navigate a lot of different things, but there's a lot of women in the world who they've never been in the workforce. They've never dealt with their finances.
The return to work it's overwhelming. So we're actually so we do our core programs. I'm going to give a little bit more so I can get to the returnship piece.
Yeah.
So whether you're transitioning your career from one, nursing, teaching, wherever you're coming from, you can shift, right? As well as re-entering the workforce. And then we do some this last year we launched deeper dives. So going from tech moms, I'm picking a path, and help them onto that path, into higher education, into resume reviews, interviewing, all of those different wraparound services we provide. But then we also launched a cybersecurity program. We launched a data analytics and AI. We are doing a project management. We're actually becoming a pretty elevated, high-tech education.
University.
Yeah, I know.
Yourself.
And we partner with all of the universities, but we've actually created our own curriculum that allows them to go through in a way that we found is more accommodating for our student base. And you have other people like you that are going through the exact same thing, right? And it's like, oh, this isn't just me. I'm not just trying to figure this out on my own. I have this whole community that is so powerful, right? We say once a tech mom, always a tech mom, and you're in. So on the return to work piece, we also do an online program for anyone, regardless of where you're coming from. It doesn't even have to be in tech, where you can just get the fundamentals, what it would take to get back into a career. So we offer that. And then this year I started working with the state. We got a grant to do a return to work program that is amazing. So my background's been in enterprise software and did a lot of what they call customer relationship management systems. So it's your Salesforce and CRM, your HubSpots, those types of programs. But I brought in 3 women that are returning to work. We actually have 4. My program manager as well is a return to work mom. And they all have gotten their admin certificates on Salesforce, and they're migrating. I'm building our systems all out on Salesforce for tech moms.
Awesome.
So they're migrating our systems. They're learning on the job. They're doing internships. They're getting not just the certifications, but the hands-on experience that are going to make them extremely valuable going into the workplace. And they are awesome.
Yeah.
They are awesome. I don't know why more people don't do what I'm doing. I'm like, I feel like I've got this little access to this resource that I just don't know many companies recognize the opportunity that is there if they just lean into it.
Yeah.
Right. And take advantage of it.
Well, and I think so much of the stigma around single moms or moms coming back to work or returnships, right? I've been out of the workforce for so long. It's so heavy that if it's not intentional, it's definitely unconscious bias toward that, right? And so that's a much harder battle to fight when you're not even aware that you're biased, that you're doing it, you know? So I love that you are bringing these tools not only to women who are, let's just be frank, Trina, they are desperate for work. Absolutely. They have now become the sole income provider for their whole family. Yeah. And there is not that partnership in the background happening. There's not this two-income family, to your point, you know? Same as me. It's so I wanted to ask you about having ownership of your finances. What did that do for your confidence and for your path forward?
I was very fortunate just because I had developed my career. By the time I went through divorce and was a single mom, I was the provider. I understood how to manage my finances, and it wasn't as a drastic of a challenge for me that I see a lot of women go through just because I was already there.
Because you were doing it.
I was doing it. It was almost like for me, a relief of like, oh, I don't have to deal with his stuff now too.
Right.
It's like, whew, this is a lot easier actually. But I
felt much more harmonious.
I am much more harmonious. It was a good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was also very much a challenge, you know, emotionally and going through all of that. And then like now it's like all the kids. And so I get aspects of it, but I do see a lot of women going through this challenge of like, I don't know how to do a budget. Some that don't even know how the mortgage got paid or how utilities were set up or just some fundamentals, right? That we're missing. And then you start getting into negotiating your pay and getting into 401k management. And some of these things can be real long-term wealth building, right? Another, I'm going to just plug it. Yeah. Another benefit of going into tech is your benefits and your long-term packages are much larger than in most careers. Yeah. So you know, be thinking about that when you're selecting a career or upskilling or reskilling in something. Those are the jobs that are really going to pay off long-term, not just your core salary. Right. So, but there's just a lot to be thinking about, and it becomes very overwhelming as well if you're going through this emotional challenge on top of like all this stuff coming at you that you maybe not have known before that you're now having to take on. And then once you do shift your career and you are making more money, how do you effectively manage that long-term? And that's really why we were looking at one of my lead data analyst trainer came to me. He's like, I want to launch this financial training course. You know, she saw the opportunity too. So we're excited to get that launched.
I really appreciate that because having been in that space and experiencing welfare myself, you know, for a short period of time, about 6 months, but it was still enough to realize this is a broken system and there's got to be a better way that we can function as a society to help women who are in this situation, you know, and I think and I'm sure for you as well, Trina, like building these things, going through being a single mom, wrestling with finances, like your empathy for the demographic of women who are suffering and challenged and literally are capable, but there's no bridge for them. Like your empathy grows for that demographic of people. And so watching you on stage talk to your moms and watching the tears and the gratitude and the love and the loyalty, the real loyalty that they have, not only to you, but to the employers that employ them. Oh yeah. That's life-changing to watch that happen as an observer. And so what a beautiful thing to bring to them.
I think for employers too, that's one thing I'd put out is you don't recognize that how appreciative, and they will be there for you. If you learn how to enable them and their success, and they will give everything they have, right? And you know, you don't have the same attrition issues. You don't have, they just want a safe place where they can grow and learn and provide for themselves and their families. Yeah. And I think the more companies recognize that, the better, right? The better off they're going to be.
Well, and the value is in the work itself. It's not like, can you be here from 8 to 5, you know,
yeah,
the
that's
value,
a whole other,
right?
We could do a whole other podcast on that. I have a lot of opinions on that space.
Yeah, because you know,
be
Trina,
results focused,
the
right?
results focused,
not time based focused. Yeah.
I would much rather arm myself with 20 moms who are hungry to have that work and to show up and to perform, and I would much rather have you working at home, getting the work done.
Yeah.
Than
when you need to.
When you need
that.
to. Yeah.
Our whole team are our prior tech moms, except for my BYU intern I hired. Everybody else are prior tech moms, and our whole group is remote.
Yeah.
It saves us on costs. As a nonprofit, you want to be able to keep your operational costs low. And we're distributed across Utah. We can't really say, oh, this is our hub. So remote working is definitely part of it, but we also are extremely flexible on hours and focus on results.
Yeah.
So what is your job? What needs to be done by what dates? What are the expectations? And being very clear on that. And it takes some upfront work, but then I can just let my team go.
Yeah.
And then we just do check-ins. Like I just do 15-minute check-ins every morning. And where we at? What did you do yesterday? We kind of use Agile Scrum of what are you going to be doing today? What roadblocks do you have? Where can I help?
Yeah.
And it just becomes a lot more efficient than these long drawn out meetings where nobody really needs to be there.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know, you just have to be a lot more upfront on expectations and outcomes.
Well, and I think too, Trina, being a mom and training moms in this capacity, we're already time conscious people.
Yeah.
We have to be somewhere here, and we have to pick up here, and we have to get to the practice here, and we are already mindful of our minutes.
Yes.
Right. And so for employers, that would seem to be an advantage point.
It
right?
would be. I actually have a use case, I guess you'd call it. But when I was at eBay and I was running technology operations, I had one of my team members that was based in Germany, and she worked part-time, and I had to fight with our HR department because she was amazing, but she's like, with my schedule, can I work part-time? Can we shift from a full-time to a part-time role? And so I got so much pushback, and it drove me nuts because I'm like, she's amazing. I want to lose her. Right. We shouldn't be letting her go.
Right.
But, and what happened when I did this, she was just as effective in those, 20 hours a week versus 40 hours a week. And she probably got more done than most of my full-time employees because she was like your point, compartmentalizing, like, I got these hours for my family. This is for my work. All I'm going to do, hyper-focused for these hours. And she would just, she was amazing. And I'm like, why do we feel like it has to be that? Yeah. Right. And
I think we idolize the burnout, right? We idolize the long work days. We put that in our successful people. What do? They sleep at the office. We have this like weird vision of what it takes to actually be successful, And so I think with organizations like Tech Moms and, I forgive me because I don't know all of the other organizations that are in Utah because I'm a big fan of yours. Sorry, ladies, I'll find you. But I feel like, who are the people that are making the biggest impact? Those are the people at the lowest level. This is where we're going to see impact shifts. This is where we're going to see dynamics shift, is that we teach you that just the leadership level above us, we teach you how to work with us. You don't get to necessarily structure that I think there will be a point where employers don't get to structure how employees show up. I have to say when I was, in this space. And back when I was still in my, executive enterprise, large role, we did a form of this. Yeah. It wasn't quite to, I like where you're going. Yeah. But you mean in La La Land? Yeah, La La Land. It could come. It could come. I believe that. I believe that. But a short-term way of doing this is it's very important to be having one-on-ones with your team. Yeah. And the conversations I would have with my team was, how do I best effectively work with you? And it was never the same. It's the same thing. Like harmony for you is going to be different than me. How I want to communicate, where I want to communicate, how I do that. What frequency, how often, what's your work schedule like? What's your life demands going to be? Do we need to make alterations? Those were conversations I would have all the time. Yeah. And I still do with my current team, right?
of how do we make this work right now? And I think this would keep women in the workforce longer if we started having those conversations. And to my point of she was going to leave the company, I had the same thing when I got remarried and blended a family of 8 kids, which is a little crazy.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole level of craziness that Trina has. When I did that, I went to my vice president and I said, can we just have lunch? I want to have a conversation. And I was going to leave because I was like, I don't know if they're going to support this, right? Like I've got to deal with some things. And we had 8 kids in 6 different schools in 2 different cities. And I had to drive my stepkids back and forth between where I was living to their other city, just because their other parent wasn't supportive. And so I was helping with that. And so I sat down with him and I had a conversation. He's like, yeah, why don't you just work from home 2 days a week right now? And then the other few days you can leave at 2:30, just come in a little bit earlier. Because I was managing a global team. I still needed to be present to a point. And so I did that for 4 months. And then I went back to normal. It was just a temporary thing. And I think sometimes we think these decisions are long term, but it's just like, you know, my life is going to be topsy-turvy for a little while. Let me adjust to handle that and then be flexible. And I think these hard decisions where they're like forced back to office, across the board, everybody, I think there's an opportunity. I get the need for that. But at the same time, I think leave that up to the manager and their team to figure out what's going to work for them.
I
rather
appreciate
than
that.
these widespread blanket rules. I think there's room for more flexibility than that.
Trina, you're a Wonder Woman. You are. You know, I have this tribe of Wonder Women around me that I love and grow and value every single day. And I want to just touch really quickly on Harmony, and then I want to give you an opportunity to tell us where we can find you. We didn't even get into resilience, but this is my question.
Because resilience and Harmony go together.
So so I think I heard this. You remember, TLC? You remember the band TLC?
I do.
And Left Eye, the one that always had like the black mark under her eye.
I think I'm remembering.
There was a question to her ages ago. It was way back in the day when they were super popular. And somebody said, you look amazing. What do you do? Do you work out every day? And she said, I work out when I want to. I do what I want to when I feel like it's what I should be doing in that season of my life. And I thought, I've never forgotten that answer, because when I think about Harmony, that's what I think about. I do it when it feels good. And everything else, I just kind of let go to the side and focus on the thing that's bringing me the most fulfillment in that moment. Yes, I have to do these things in the background, but I'll go to the gym when I want to. Right?
Well, I'm going to flip it a little bit because I'm very passionate about fitness. Because
this was just applies to everything, right?
Because for me, what I've learned is when I don't go to the gym, that's when I get out of disharmony. And even my kids would be like, Mom, did you not go to the gym today? Because you're really freaking ornery. So I'm a big proponent of it's more of you have the big rocks and then you fill in the pebbles from there. Fitness for me is a big rock. And being able to get out and it makes you feel better. You start feeling better about yourself. There's a lot of confidence that comes with it. Like there's mental
and resilience
benefits. Resilience grows. So for me, just because you brought up fitness, that is one that's non-negotiable for me. So 6-7 days a week at a minimum, and it will change. And there'll be days where I couldn't yesterday because of, slopes and conferences. It's like, okay, today's not going to go, but I make a plan to when am I going to make up for that? And how am I going to do it? So for me, it's been a big part of who I am and what's important to me.
And recentering in the garden.
And I think that personal space to be able to do that, if you don't have enough time to get out and exercise, I would reevaluate that, right? If you're constantly well, it doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't always feel good. First of all. So you kind of have to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to think about how I'm going to feel after I get it done. Right? Because then you're I know after I go, I call it the power of showing up. I tell my students this too. It's you're going to have days where you just don't want to show up. It's not going to feel good. But you're always going to feel better after you do. And so there's a power of showing up, whether it's at the gym or to your school classes or whatever it is that you're I've set this goal And I know I'm going to feel better once I accomplish that goal, right? And keep that long-term vision in mind rather than the short-term, how do I feel right now? Kind of helps you get there. So yeah, I do make sure some days my workouts aren't great.
Yeah.
We always say there's never a bad workout.
Nope.
There isn't. You showed up, you
Yeah.
did something.
Yeah.
Okay, the next day you can do better, right? It's a big part. But I think just not just on fitness, but in overall, what are the things that are like the non-negotiables? What do you have to do every day, right? And that you're not going to allow other things to consume that time that you need to make sure you're getting it done, you know?
Yeah, because it's the fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that corner
Like, I
of yourself
accomplished it.
that
I
I
did
did
it.
something.
Yeah.
And I think also when you do that, you build this bank of confidence that you can do it, so that when you hit those really challenging
really
things,
move you forward.
you move forward through that.
Even with my kids, we have these conversations all the time about, okay, if we can just get them to get in and start going, they're going to feel that success and they're going to want more.
They're going to more of it. That's right.
But you have to just get started on that path.
Yeah.
You know?
And recognizing it too. It's so helpful when you have a support system that recognizes that you're making that progress towards something.
I think telling people, there's two things I always say when you're setting a new goal, write it down, because otherwise it's just a wish.
Yeah.
Right. It becomes a goal once you write it down, you say, this is what I'm going to do, and then share it with somebody so you're accountable to yourself and to someone else of your progress and what you're working towards. And so you can kind of say, yeah, you can report out, you know, hey, I did it.
Yeah.
Right.
Trina, what is your definition of resilience in your life? And I know you have a keynote speech about it. You could talk all day long about this, but just a short version of what resilience is to you.
Moving forward anyway. I think that what I've found, I mean, I could go on with like story after story, and very early on, I fortunately had an inner drive that I don't know where it comes from, you know, of like, trying to figure out what that next thing is, or how do I figure it out, of just going forward with it. And so I grew up in a family, we didn't have a lot of financial means. We were on welfare growing up, right? And came from a circumstance where I knew that if I didn't get an education, I was going to be stuck in that.
Yeah.
And I knew an education was my way out, but we didn't have means.
Yeah.
Like my parents never asked me about my schoolwork. They never asked, you know, did you get your work done today? They never talked to me about college. College was never discussed. It was not like, oh, when you go to, we never had that conversation. And so I found myself when I was 18, I kind of tell this story about, I wrecked my car into a parked car.
It happens.
Not to many people, but to me it
I was trying to make you feel better.
Another point of vulnerability there. But I had a couple of other infractions, and so I lost my driver's license, right? And so I had to get a job because like I said, so I worked at this fast food restaurant called Vittles, and it's now Arctic Circle. Most people know it. But I rode my little brother's bike to this place called Vittles, and I'm sliding around on those greasy floors and just going, oh my gosh, there's just no way I can live this life, right? Like this is, I can't keep arguing about whose burger order is whose. Like, this is just ridiculous. I can't do it. And so I saved up my Vittles dollars. I got into my first semester in college and, you know, finally got my license back and had to work through, you know, a few things there. But I think finally getting in, and that's where I got introduced to computer science. I actually started out in architectural engineering. I love drafting and took a computer science class and went, oh, I can do this. I think this computer science thing might be something. This is back in 1994. Yeah, a long time ago.
Way back in the day.
Way back
when the dinosaurs
there was no
existed.
high tech. Yeah, the world's changed.
I'm with you, girl.
Yeah, and so it just started. It was the small steps, right? And that's what resilience is made of. It's like you just don't quit. You just go like, okay, another barrier, another barrier, another barrier, and you just work through them.
Yeah.
And I think having a mindset of the big picture and your why helps. For me, I didn't have anything to fall back on. Yeah. And maybe that's why I'm so driven is I've never had anything or anyone to fall back on. I just had to figure it out. Yeah. And so it just created a sense. It's like, once you start figuring it out once, it's like, oh, I can figure it out again. I can figure out how to publish my book. I can figure out how to do this.
Yeah,
company.
that confidence,
It's
right?
just,
that you've already done it.
I've done this. I may not know how to do this, but
I'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And this last year, my 2 co-founders who are amazing of Tech Moms sat down, Mikkel Blake and Robin Scribner, and we had a conversation about our strategy for the coming year, what we want to do. And we revisited our mission a little bit because we're like, it's not just about the tech careers.
Right.
What we found is our success comes in teaching our students to learn how to learn and learn how to love learning.
Yeah.
And that's the power, right? Of, I don't have it all figured out. I don't have to be perfect in what I'm doing. I just need to know I'll figure it out. And I have a group of resources and people to go to help me with that. And that people do want to help. And we're all just on this learning journey together. And that's really where the power comes from. It's not in specific tech skills, right? It's in saying, okay, let's all figure it out together. That's where, and that's the fun part.
And Trina, it feels so good.
It does.
To just say that, you know, it just feels good listening to you say that. It feels empowering.
We're all just figuring it out.
Well, I'm excited to figure this journey out with you. In the big scheme of all the things, with all the organizations that are doing all the things for the women, of which I don't know all of you yet, as I said earlier, but I know that my heart is very much in the same place that yours is, in empowering women to feel good about taking ownership of every part of their life.
Every part.
And moving forward in really harmonious, beautiful garden blooming ways, right?
Envision it.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Where can everybody find more information out about you?
Okay. I'm going to give you multiple, if that's okay.
Do it.
Because my hands are in a lot of different things. So with Tech Moms, it's tech-moms.org.
Okay.
For my book and speaking and all the work I do that we've been talking about today, it's trinaceleste.com.
Okay.
And if anybody's interested in learning more about the work I'm doing for AI solutions and training, that's risenext.com. It's RIZENEXT.
And this is all on social as well. So we'll drop the links in for the video, and you can find about how to connect with Trina there too. Yeah. Trina, thank you so much. You're
welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Yes, well, we'll just be Wonder Women together.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refined Resilience. We hope you found inspiration in the stories shared and the small moments that remind us all of our strength. Remember, resilience is built not just in the big challenges we face, but in the everyday experiences that shape who we are. A special thanks to our sponsor, Build Them Bless, for making Refined Resilience possible. Until next time, remember, it's the small moments of resilience that make us great.